All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor. I have my co-host, Jaden.
Yee!
And former guest, Calvin.
Thanks for having me back.
And this is the long-awaited part 3 of our Midsommar review.
Dun, dun, dun.
And we're going to do some foreshadowing, theories we have about this film, and then our wrap-up on it. So I'm excited to
I'm very stoked about
to
this
get
part.
to this one. Yeah.
Yep.
I think this is like where you really kind of, this is where we're going to figure out like what we get out of this film. you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So we're ready to get started.
Let's get to the foreshadowing and the clues. Like we talked a lot in Hereditary about how you can see the Coven's influence earlier in the film. I want to talk about some of the stuff here because we've already mentioned obviously the picture on their parents' nightstand with Danny's flower crown. I like the one where Danny blows out the Christian's candle on the cake. And she's like, I should be upset, but I'm not. And I love thinking about how like, yeah, I could put this fire. I could save you from the fire this time, but no.
But I'm not.
But no.
So I wonder what other things did you guys pick up on? Because obviously there's a lot of foreshadowing from Pele, especially.
I like the part where Pele is talking to Danny about like his parents had died in a fire. You know, I think he's trying to kind of connect with her because he's clearly like into her. I think that his parents died in the same ritual, but
That's what I'd assume too.
but I have trouble like putting that timeline together because don't they say that this happens every 90 years?
I don't think so. I don't know what the 90 years thing would be. I honestly would just cut that because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what the 90 years thing is because clearly we have a May Queen every year.
Right.
Clearly we have people that get sacrificed at least. Maybe, I mean, the thing is like I suppose at the stupa could happen like every time someone gets to 72. Maybe it's just the temple thing that is every 90 years.
I was thinking maybe it's a bear thing, yeah, or I don't really care.
But
Yeah.
if it's the temple, it's every 90 years, then it wouldn't make sense that Pele's parents died in it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because like unless they're like they burn because they do burn the bodies after a stupa. So
Maybe
he could have been lying about that for that reason.
I like to think
But
that
yeah,
like
I
maybe
think,
his parents were they volunteered or they were part of that sacrifice is what I think.
That's what I'd assume.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's like kind of his motivation to be like, I'm gonna go and like I'm gonna like win this time because like I lost my parents this way, and he's like I'm gonna get the May Queen, and that's why he's so like invested in Danny,
Mm-hmm.
So that's like that's a bit of I guess foreshadowing that you could pick up on and be like, he was. His parents were a part of kind of this ritual, and now he's bringing himself to be, kind of a new iteration of that ritual. So I like that part a lot.
Yeah, I think everything works better if we just forget that they said anything about a 90-year-old feast.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a very big fan of the part when Josh says that he's like, why are all the women so attractive here? And Josh is like, well, Vikings used to kidnap all the most attractive women around the world and bring them here.
Yeah.
Which is like literally what Pele is doing.
Yeah.
Just in a new age kind of way.
Yeah, I do. That thing frustrates me. It's like, yeah, because like not every culture in all of recorded human history was already doing that.
Yeah.
But like,
Vikings
but
were
I think it's
successful at it.
yeah. They were. I mean, they were just as. But I mean, you would think that there would be some. They wouldn't all look the same.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do like that as a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I think, Jaden, you said that in part 1, how you would describe Pele as you were like a new age Viking.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what you meant by that when we recorded that episode.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I get it. That makes total sense.
Yeah,
now.
he's just doing it in like a psychological way instead of like a physical way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
like picking him up, throwing him over his shoulder and taking him away. Yeah.
Because that's kidnapping in America.
Yeah,
Instead,
exactly.
just murder her
It's
parents.
frowned upon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like, there are a few lines of his that I actually find really fun. When he says to Christian, he's like, oh yeah, I think all the Swedish women that you can impregnate in June.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which is literally what happens to him.
Yeah. No,
Yep.
you're exactly right.
When he's looking, when Christian says that someone says they're going to Sweden at the party, and Pelle turns and looks directly at Danny.
Yeah.
There's the same thing on the plane. Like when she's coming down the aisle, Pelle turns and looks over at her, whereas Christian doesn't.
There's a lot going on with him and Danny that's like, I mean, you don't need to be like a genius to pick it out, but like I said, I think there's some parts where it's like Ari Aster's like, really pay attention to this, and then which is why it's frustrating when he does things like that, because then he has like really good scenes between like kind of Pele and Danny that if you're just watching you can pick up on, And so it's like just do that all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's why those other scenes frustrate me, is because we point out scenes like this where it's like, look at how well he did this.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole commune does that with Danny. So there's this part where Civ just looks right at the camera after the suicide scene, and I believe that that's from Danny's perspective. The camera is, and she's just staring at Danny. And I believe that like you can tell like early on when Danny gets her, like they're all paying a little bit more attention to her, and like I feel like the commune like knows like, okay, this is our gal right here.
I sort of thought of that part where she looks at the camera as a mistake, but if you can interpret it into something that makes sense.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, a little bit of fourth wall breaking when we change our perspective of who's behind it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love tricks like that. I didn't really catch that. I didn't see that one. So
I just thought it was a goof, but
yeah.
Hey, man, I think that's anything you can do to make an interesting film more interesting. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I think it's.
I think there's everything. Like you can look at like almost every scene in this movie and just like try and find something, and
which is what makes this a good movie to talk about and like revisit, because it's like.
Well, he clearly loaded those things.
Yeah.
We're not picking these things out of thin air.
No.
Like it's also even like if you think of it's a normal conversation, but you think of like when Christian was like telling everyone that Danny was going to Sweden, and she's like, and by the way, you all knew about it and you invited her, and Pelle was like, yes, yeah, and he was the only one.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. It's a normal thing for people to say because they just want Christian to shut up, but the fact that it's only Pelle that says that,
right.
I think when we look at it this way, like we start to see another layer of like, this is the plan.
Yeah.
This film lends itself to that kind of deeper dive and trying to find more fun things in it. Whereas like we did a review on Vivarium, and that movie, it's like we are desperately trying to pull anything interesting out of that movie.
Yeah.
Like
and
we are making
nothing.
up our own stuff to try and make that movie fun to watch. And there is just nothing to it. There's a ton to this movie.
Yeah.
And being able to go through and pick and pull your own interpretations from little scenes is what makes this movie like a masterpiece, whereas Vivarium is like an absolute slog to get through.
Yeah, and I honestly think that if what I remember, our version of Vivarium was a whole lot more compelling, but it's still like. But the thing is, it's like still so forgettable. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
like because the base was so low that we couldn't make it that much better. That it's interesting now.
I think the fact that in an hour, like just three dudes talking together came up with a better version of Vivarium than what was released kind of really is telling on how bad that movie actually is.
Which is so sad because it had so much promise. It clearly had someone that was that understood camera language well enough to tell a compelling story, to compose good images, to create nice mise en scène. The settings were really great. I just don't know how you can mess everything else up.
Yeah,
literally everything else.
You're so right. Do we have any more foreshadowing we want to cover?
Well, maybe we want to get into
some theories.
Some theories here.
Okay, I want to talk real quick about Danny and Pelle's names and what I think they might mean outside of the story.
Okay.
So like Danny means to be judged by God. That's what her name means, and then her last name Arter means to be burned or to be set on fire.
Huh.
And so and then Pelle's name means stone. And Matthew 7:24. This is probably like reaching real deep into this, but I don't care. Matthew 7:24 states like if you build your house like on stone, like as far as your faith for God, that your life will be better and all that stuff. So I think like her building her house on Pelle instead of Christian is like her building it on stone, and she will be judged better by God
instead of like the sandy ground. I think that's like what that other kind of more that passage talks about.
It's fascinating that you say that because like. A lot of people actually think that the burning of the temple is reminiscent of the church burning that happened in the early 90s in Norway because people were sick of Christianity because how they just came in and destroyed their culture.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny that like that Pelle, it might be have some basis in Christian.
That's awesome. And no, Jayden, you said you think you're digging too deep. Like I just said, this movie lends itself to that's why we do a part 2, man. That's why we're in part 2.
But so you have like so why do you think that Pelle orchestrated everything to get Danny to Sweden?
One big thing I think is the flower crown around the picture. I think that he put that there because he's like, you're my May Queen. You're my queen. Sorry. Too many Game of Thrones references all the time. But that's obvious. Like to me, I think it's obvious. When Danny states, when she calls Christian in the beginning of the movie, and she's talking about the emails that her sister has been sending her, or the instant messages, or whatever the fuck they are, and she's like, I know she sends weird ones or whatever. But this one seems different, and she's like, it's not like the way she speaks, and like it's very vague and strange, like what she wrote. I forget what it's like all turning black or something like that.
Yeah,
is her message.
But it's like when you know
everything's
someone, you can
black.
tell when something's off. Yeah,
and like Christian's obviously is like trying to blow it off because he doesn't like want to fucking talk about her crazy sister anymore.
I think he says it's just a like she's just seeking attention.
Yeah. And like I just think it's weird that like she's like placed. It seems like she's like placed by the laptop, and she's like covered in what looks like vomit. I have this theory that the stuff that they spray like blow into Christian's mouth in the movie to paralyze him, that's how they do that to her.
Oh, okay.
And
like
then
they actually vomit when that stuff
maybe yeah. And then they have the duct tape around her face for the hose and stuff. And then and then all the stuff that like is said, like as far as like Vikings kidnapping people, and like so that way when she gets there, like she has no home to return to, no family. There's nothing for her to go back to. It's like at the end of the day, like why wouldn't she just stay with Pele? I think it was all just kind of like a long driven thing to get her there and to keep her there. And another thing is like the way the commune acts towards her when she gets there, is if they all knew and like.
And clearly that Pele had shown them all of that information.
Yeah.
Like they knew who everybody was coming there because he had sent them all of that information.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting too.
Yeah, I think the big problem I have with that is it seems like they're, I mean, I guess it's not never like stated, but it seems like they're like geographically, Danny is separate from her parents. So
Yeah.
I guess the idea of like, so Pele went all the way to, I guess that means they must have been dead for a while because Pele's out having dinner with Christian and everyone.
Yeah.
When Christian gets the phone call that Danny's
Well, it
family's
doesn't
dead.
necessarily have to be Pele. It could be people from the commune.
Well, and
Oh,
also
right, okay,
also
okay.
when they were on the phone, like Christian had just done resin with Mark. Pele wasn't there yet.
I guess that,
So that
yeah,
the
and I
timeline-
do not know how far away they live and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
I guess
because
it's the way it's
very
edited.
I think it's clear that it's within the same city.
huh.
At least you can think of it as being a suburb of the same city.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they're more than 45 minutes apart from all of them. None of the characters are at any point.
I think that's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned it when we did the part one, and I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
that never occurred to me. I think it's interesting. I guess I just don't understand why. I mean, I guess you said because Danny wouldn't want to go home then because she has nothing
Yeah.
to go home to. But I guess like you could get her out to Sweden without her family being killed, you know? I
Yeah.
think. So I guess like for that being like the catalyst to get her to go, like that's kind of the one part that I'm like I don't track with. But I do like that idea a lot, and especially like having the flowers on her picture.
Yeah.
Like, that would be like super creepy. Like they came into the house, they like, you know, they set this, orchestrated
Yeah.
this whole thing to get her out there.
Queen.
It's very creepy. I like the idea a lot. You also brought up the hose that's in Danny's sister's mouth.
Yeah.
So you know there's like that dream sequence later. It's like the only scene that takes place at night.
Yeah.
And Danny breathes out all that smoke. Because I think it's like exhaust from a car or something.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like the inverse of that. Like she's breathing all that exhaust out. I
Yeah.
think that's a really cool, like if you can piece those two together, I think that's a really cool, like kind of reverse imaging, you know?
Yeah, it's neat. That scene's cool.
I also love the idea too of, we mentioned in part one how she's always her affect display for sadness and grief is clutching at her throat. She feels like she can't say anything, and I love to think that that's why, because she's choking on smoke too. Like
Right.
there's another layer of it. Like not only like can she not say anything to Christian because he'll withhold his love, but it's also because like there's just all of this toxic stuff that she's kept down within her body and won't release.
Yeah, none of these takes are bad at all. Like everything is just, it's so creepy, and there's so much going on in this movie. This is definitely one that like you could go watch with your friends, and then because this movie's just so worth watching. I think these conversations are so good. Do we have any like I guess kind of
So-
what do we take away from this film?
Yeah, like what is this movie? You know, I would love to hear your opinions on it.
I mean, it's a very excellent piece of art that just drives you through this movie in a terrifying and like uncomfortable way, and like the uncomfortableness like makes you like like once like puts you in the film almost. Like I feel like as uncomfortable. Like why don't they feel as uncomfortable as I do right now?
Yeah,
Like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, why is Christian just like, and so who, who washes the clothes?
Yeah.
I'm sure Connie and Simon are fine. Like, you're an idiot.
Yeah,
like,
he's a dipshit. I mean, after the suicide scene, like he literally doesn't care.
yeah.
Like he does not care.
Yeah,
He's just like
I'm just trying to
oh,
be-
just respect their culture. You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, those people just killed themselves in front of you. That's pretty wild, dude.
I think when we watched this all together, Jane and I were the whole time we were like, leave, just leave.
Yeah.
All of us are like, leave this place. Which I wonder if maybe that explains why there's so many like outsiders that show up with Danny and everyone else.
Yeah.
And like they were like us. They were the smart ones. They were like, I'm leaving. This sucks. Like,
Well, nobody else was dressed like them, though. They were the only ones. Simon, Connie, Christian, Josh, and Danny were the only ones not, or I guess Ingmar and Pele as well, were the only one not dressed in the ceremonial frocks or anything. They're also the only ones at the table, the Othala table before it.
I thought they
you
were
guys talking about like when they first get there and they take the mushrooms and there's all those people in the field?
Yeah, there's all those people in the field, and also when you walk through the sun.
I'm imagining that there are multiple communes. That's
Well,
kind
they
of what I
wouldn't-
always thought.
But there are also more people that walk into the commune when they get there.
yeah.
That's what I don't understand. That there are clearly multiple people with a person from the commune. So there are multiple people. There are more people that were brought there from outside than what were shown.
I wonder if they're all actually part of the commune. It was just like a front.
I just think you don't
Make
see
you
them, and
feel
maybe
comfortable.
they just leave before you get to. Maybe you just don't see them. That's
I'll
what I
watch the
think, 'cause-
director's cut and let you know if
Thank
there's
you.
something there.
Because I do remember there being a lot more people just kind of in, casually dressed. And so where did they all go? I like to think that they just were like, oh, I'm getting the hell out of here. This sucks. Like,
Or they were murdered way sooner.
or yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what else are they supposed to eat?
Yeah, you're right.
So.
When I watch this, I think a lot about and Ari Aster says it in an interview, so it's not like I have some like profound take on this. This absolutely feels like a breakup movie to me.
Yeah.
Like just this, because I don't think that the ending it's not happy. Even though you kind of see Danny with which is so weird. Danny is like so drugged out at the end of this movie that it's almost like she's barely in it, which I don't really love. I think it's kind of not the best use of Florence Pugh in this, where she's just kind of very malaise the whole time until like kind of the very end when she gets that little grin on her face, seeing that temple burn down. And so I don't like to think of this as like her happy ending, but I do like to think of it as like the conclusion of like this like cathartic experience where she's like finally come out on the other end. Like it only goes up from there. So maybe it's not like a joyful ending, but it's like, hey, she hit this point and now the uptick is gonna start in her life. I guess kind of like Jaden said, maybe she just stays there. She's like, I got nothing else to do. I'll just stay. And so maybe that's part of her being kind of assimilated in this culture. And like you said with that rune, it's like she's inherited these rituals now. And so she's just going to be a part of it. So
No, like hers was injustice, death, hopelessness.
No, but I mean, it's like you mentioned the rune.
Othala one, yeah.
I was just referring to the rune.
Well, she has her own particular ones.
Yeah.
That's why. And I actually think that, so it's when you guys talk about being cathartic and like, oh, that she's starting a new life over, I actually think this movie is a cautionary tale about what it means to heal from bad relationships. Like if we don't take the time to individuate, to be comfortable in our skin, then we'll go through our lives looking for something that fills that void of abuse. We'll latch on to anything that makes us feel loved, that makes us feel seen, that gives us purpose. And I think you can see this happen in religion, in politics, in the search for new boyfriends or girlfriends. We'll compromise ourselves and our values just to feel held. Like this movie.
Does Christian ever hold you?
Yeah.
Do you feel held by Christian?
Exactly. And I think like this movie hits like a really personal note for me because like I was in an abusive relationship for a long time. I didn't realize it. And I really identify with Danny because like that scene where they're all crying and just screaming.
Oh boy.
I well up and like I'm on the verge of sobbing because like it's like you want someone to see you in pain, to experience your pain with you. Like you can all the pretense of this context is bizarre and it doesn't make any sense and it's implausible, but the emotion of it is so heavy to me because because it's the same. Like I display, like I've mentioned before, like I display grief and sadness the same way. I clutch my throat. I feel that tightness there because I want to say something. I need to say something, and she finally lets it out, and everyone just consoles her there. It's just unfortunate that here that it's, you know, a murderous cult that decides to do it. But I think if you take it in a vacuum, that is, I don't know how to describe that scene because it's nothing I've ever seen in film before. It's nothing that I've really like feel like I've ever experienced even, but it's something that's put on screen. Like, again, we talk about like exercises in empathy. So you may not have ever been through an abusive relationship, but like here's like the essence of it right here.
Right.
So that this movie is very powerful to me in that respect.
Right.
And I mean, I know, Connor, you really resonate with Hereditary more because of the family drama aspect.
Yeah, I think we had talked about that before. Because this movie means a lot more to you two than it does to me. Like that's why I was like joking around. I was like, you guys are gonna do your own show on just Midsommar, and like, and you guys watch this. Like the more I watch this, the more I was like, maybe I should like kind of separate myself from this so I can keep enjoying it. But it seems like the more you guys watch it, the more you connect with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially just Danny as a character. Like I said, I'm very like empathetic towards her, and I've been in a similar situation as you, and as far as relationship goes, and yeah, it sucks. And this is very telling towards that, like the way you act when you feel so vulnerable and like not wanted. Like you feel like, okay, I got to get what I can. So that's why I'll let you treat me like shit as long as you keep me around. And
yeah,
like, that's a horrible thing, but I've done that. And
yeah. Well, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
Dude, don't go. I'm like, this scene. Dude.
I love seeing you guys gush about this because it is. I think it's like
I don't know. That's not a gushing.
It's like,
but I think that's part of what makes like film so valuable, like culturally and socially. It's like the way you can. Sometimes maybe I don't feel like I can express myself to people around me or in a certain way, but it's like I can identify with a character, and like that's enough for me to like kind of get you through something. You know, having that connection and being like, oh, you know, like identifying with someone else in that way. I think like film and like storytelling in general is like so powerful in that way, and that's why I think it's cool like having you guys because again, I don't connect with this movie in that way, at least not to like the degree you guys do.
Yeah.
And so to like see you guys be like kind of get emotional and like really connected with it, I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast. That's why I wanted to talk about movies, because I think there are really great ones out there that you can just feel like, wow, like this means so much to me. And even though I don't know Florence Pugh, I don't know Toni Collette, but like these characters on screen, I'm like, wow, there's so much to get out of it.
Yeah,
and I think it's really important. I think it's like film matters, man. It really
does.
Great.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk about these ones so much in particular because you have an amazing emotional depth, but like so you have all of the great filmmaking techniques. Like these are pieces of cinema, but then you also have this amazing display of like someone could go into this movie not being a mother, not being a brother or a father or in an abusive relationship, and sit with these characters and get a piece of what it's like to experience these emotions, to put yourself in someone else's shoes and like, wow, this if you take out all of the supernatural weird stuff or the cult stuff, there's humanness there for you to try and identify with. And I think that's why these films are so important to me.
Absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a kind of a funny story. So my younger sister, she got a hold of me like maybe a year ago. She's like, have you seen Midsommar? I was like, no, it's been on my list for a while. She's like, oh my gosh, I just watched it. She watched it with her husband and her husband's parents. And then he has two younger brothers who are like freshman and sophomore in high school, and they just thought it was going to be like a horror movie. Like they just thought they were just some jump scare movie, and they were like, my sister's sitting there with all of her in-laws watching this creepy sex scene, and she's like, it is the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my whole life. And it was like, I was like, this is incredible. I was like, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall to see that. It must have just been the most awkward thing ever.
Yeah, it's way weird. Yeah.
Oh man, I just think that's an incredible story. Like, because I mean, I knew enough about Midsommar to be like, I need to be feeling right in order to put this movie on. And the fact that they just threw it on, they're like, yeah, we'll watch it with like his brother's like 13 and 14, and they're like, this is so not the right movie. And then to watch it with like your parents, is like, oh
freshman
my god,
year in high school. That would be
like 14, 15, right?
yeah, that would have been like, I was 15 when I was a little bit old, I guess. So 14.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah. At
But
least.
I just think it was just the funniest story I'd ever heard. I was like, what are you thinking? Like, don't watch that with them.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It's like one of the best stories I have. But yeah, I think with that, are we gonna give scores on this one?
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah. What did we?
We're doing pube pies. What are we doing here?
Pube pie.
Why don't we do
Period wines.
I think we go back to one of our classic. How many pews do you give this one?
Oh.
How many
gotcha.
Florence
That's-
pews does this
yeah.
one get?
Callback to when nobody listened to us.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite films, if not my favorite film that I've seen. I think this is really the embarkment of my journey towards like liking better films and stuff like that. Is this movie? I connect with Danny a lot on personal levels. Super easy to empathize with her. We've talked about movies that we have to chew on before.
Right.
This movie, like I look at it as like a giant juicy steak that I think I'm gonna have to chew on, and then it just melts in my mouth.
Oh,
And everything is so easy to consume in this movie, and it's easy to become become part of it. I'm part of this journey with these guys, and like they're stupid, and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. And like this movie to me is just like it was a great introduction to like the better side of film.
For sure.
So I'll give this a 9.8 pews.
Ooh, nice.
Which I'm hoping is my highest rated one. If it's not, it should be. I know I gave like 14 million balloons or something like that.
That's kind
the
of
math,
weird.
the math is working against you.
Because didn't we work that out to how many balloons it would take, or how many balloons were lifting the house, and then we did like our score based on it. That was a really
Yeah,
odd.
and you were like, I'd pop 4 balloons. And I had to go back and like I had a whole function in the Excel sheet.
I really like this film a lot. I think Ari Aster, the way he composes shots, I just don't think there's anyone doing it any better. And I, like, we did a whole series on Denis Villeneuve, and I love the way he puts his shots together. But as far as just something that I can just sit back and just like really enjoy, I think that you could, because this movie doesn't even have a lot of dialogue in it, especially like I think the last half hour has almost none.
No, almost none. Yeah.
And it's
which is
just-
like my favorite part. Of
yeah.
the movie.
A directorial staple.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I think is so
Wow,
great
yeah.
about what he does. It's like I don't even care if someone's talking. I think there's enough being given to me in what I'm seeing, and I get to linger on all this stuff for so long that I think you can understand a lot about the film without it being told to you. And so that's why I love his movies, and like I said, I can't wait for what else like the other stuff he comes out with. But yeah, I put this like an 8 for me. This is absolutely rock solid, and while I did say it's like I probably need a break from it for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, this movie will never be bad to me. It'll
No, yeah,
never
it's a
get
good
worse.
movie,
Like
yeah.
and especially after talking about this, I'm like, okay, well now I need to get my my Rosetta Stone of runes out and
Yeah.
translate my way through this. There's just so much stuff I missed. I'm realizing now, and I thought I went through with a pretty fine tooth comb, and to realize like there's still more to this, more to digest, more to chew on. Like Jaden said, I think it's great.
Yeah, and these are films that I suggest that this is a good place to start for your film journey, like especially Hereditary, because I think there are fewer problems. It's also shorter. I think Hereditary is a better movie overall in terms of concept and execution, aesthetic overall. But I do like Midsommar better. But I love how we've told an extremely compelling narrative story with a lot of high-minded cinema techniques. He understands the language of his camera. He's created, he uses other artistic modes to support his ideas. And I just think it's amazing. I can't wait to see more of what he's doing. I can't wait to see more of what Eggers is doing as well. But I do feel like there's a little bit more to connect with in terms of Ari Aster's films, because they're more based on like family human stories. So it's honestly a 9.7 for me.
Yeah.
And it's just because like, is it the best film that I've ever seen? No. Is it my highest rated one now? Yes. Other than The Fountain, but that's like a cheap score because that one just affected my filmmaking so much. But there's just so much to connect with here that it's like it makes me feel heard seeing someone else on screen get heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to put that, Galvin.
All right. I'm glad we did this one. But I think we're wrapping up now.
I can't wait to do a part 3. Yeah, because we mentioned yellows and blues. We never talked about yellows and
I'm
blues.
editing this to a 3-parter. So So you're just fine. So yeah, thanks for wrapping up part 3 with us. I'm your host, Connor. I got my co-host, Jaden.
Yee.
And former guest, Calvin.
Thanks for having me back.
All right. Thank you for listening to Now This is Podcasting.